First of all, let me say that how delighted I am to be here with you all this morning. More particularly to see the Great Lakes Management Institution, which is a creation of passion, creation of innovation by Professor Bala, your Director Shram, all faculty members and all of you together, because there is nothing more exciting than an act of creation, an act of innovation. And I'm so honored and pleased and delighted to be standing in the midst of that act of creation. And that is important because very few of us in life get that opportunity. And even if we have the opportunity, we convert that into creating something world-class, something outstanding, something new, something different, something special, and something that is close to our hearts. So I think this is a great achievement for all of you. I congratulate you, and I also apologize to Professor Bala and Suram and all others that they have extended this invitation to me for a long time. For one reason or the other, I have not been able to make it. But I think, as they say, that the fruits of waiting are always sweeter and better, so I'm not disappointed or I'm not sad that I waited that long to be here. And it's such a great feeling to be here. The second reason it's a great feeling is to have so many young minds present here today who aptly Bala described as the future leaders. And I was just sharing with Shiv Kumar the beauty of those roses with three very distinct color and flavor in those head tables there. And I was just drawing a comparison, looking at all of you and those flowers to say that you exactly represent the same, the promise, the beauty, the joy, the delight of what those flowers represent. That's what you represent for future of business, of industry, of corporates of this country, for the world itself. And it's so heartwarming always to be amongst young people, to interact and learn so much more. And I find that you all perhaps use technology like perhaps we used to use tricycle in our childhood. And I hope to be someday as adept as you are at using technology. Today also is a very special day for me to share the dais with not only Professor Bala, but also a very dear friend, Shiv. Professor Bala and Shiv are two people that I've admired, amongst many others, for a long time, for very, very different and similar reasons. And of course, you know Professor Bala more than I do because you call him uncle, because how can, from compared to nephews and nieces, how can someone else like me know him better? But all I would say is, Shiv is an outstanding professional that I have always admired, learned from. We happened to be colleagues at one point in time, and of course I've watched him from the sidelines grow from stature to stature, and I'm sure, I hope you learn as much as possible from him today. And it's equally delightful for me to be amongst friends. I see Shyam Viswanathan there, Alan Sikora there, Mr. N. Sundar here, people again who are extremely accomplished, people I have been privileged to know for so long. So I'm so delighted, and the reason I'm saying all this is you go somewhere, you get one benefit. But you come to this place today, you get so many benefits. Benefits of being amongst accomplished people, being amongst people who are likely to be accomplished in future, people who have created act of creation, innovation and passion like this institution, and also to be amongst friends. So I think I could be more delighted to have so many reasons to be here today. And Bala, if I may say, you were saying, what is Thoda? I think Karl Marx many years ago created a principle of defining Thoda. He said, from each according to his ability and to each according to his need or greed. Of course, Marx perhaps talked about need, and today is replaced by greed. So I think what is Thoda can be we can go back to Karl Marx to define what is Thoda based on that principle. So I'm glad that you're having this conference on making elephants dance and the subject of transformation. First of all, as I read the title of the conference, the first question that came to my mind is, where is the elephant? Is the elephant really out there, or is the elephant in our minds? So now whether the elephant can dance, would dance, could dance, whether he will do break dance or samba dance or Latino dance or Indian Kathak or Kuchipudi, it would all depend on whether the owner of the elephant or the minders of the elephant, or who does it depend on. So first of all, I would say and urge you to think that if you wish to be transformative leaders, to believe that the elephant is not out there, the elephant is in our minds. The moment you take a view of the elephant, not just as a gigantic, beautiful animal, but at the same time, an animal that can be nimble, because I remember, I can't recall the film by Rajesh Khanna, where I remember the elephants playing football. See if you remember. You know, I don't remember the name of the film. I don't know if anyone remembers. Correct. I've forgotten. You know, watching 3 Idiots and, you know, multiple idiots nowadays, you sometimes forget. So, when you find that elephants can be that nimble to play, so who said elephants cannot dance? I think dance is no different. If you see Paul Gascoigne, or you see the contemporary generation of Ronaldos, Cristiano Ronaldo or Ronaldo, every time they score a goal, more than anything they break into a form of dance. So, you know, so if elephants can play football, they can equally dance as footballers do. So the question for you as a transformative leaders to ask is the elephant really out there, or is it in your mind? If you look at most large corporations, whether it is General Electric, IBM, or any others, the story is endless of large corporations that have transformed themselves, adapted themselves to new challenges. And I think if we are inspired by those kind of examples, the first point I want to leave with you is that the elephant really can dance. We have n number of examples, inspiring examples, where the elephant has danced. And my own organization, Aditya Birla Group, which from $1.6 billion in 1996, today under the chairman of ours, Mr. Kumar Mangal Birla, under his leadership, moving from 1.6 billion in 96 to today $40 billion is an example of how an elephant not only learns to dance, but learns to dance in different forms at the same time. And I think there are many inspiring examples both in India, Southeast Asia and globally, where we can see that if you do not see elephant out in there in reality, but you kind of deal with the elephant in our mind, then actually in reality you can make it dance. The next important point is that our understanding of this whole issue of transformation. I think many times we forget that transformation is more qualitative and fundamental than perhaps incremental. And I think the fundamental and qualitative aspect of transformation needs to be well understood, because a transformation is not about tinkering a little bit here and there, it's not about cosmetic changes, it's not about how it looks, but at a more deeper level, transformation is about whether fundamentally the organization's mindset has changed, the belief systems have changed, the goals have changed, whether people have learned to be more courageous and audacious in terms of taking their chances in the business world. Transformation is about who do you compare yourself, what standards you hold of yourself. I think all of this are transformative. For example, Great Lakes Institute can compare itself with the neighboring institute in Coimbatore and Tiruchirappalli. It can compare itself with ISB. It can aspire to be Harvard. It can aspire to be qualitatively completely different from all of them, leaving them behind. Now, transformation is about the standards you hold, the goals you pursue, the business models that you create in your mind. And again, if you see all the elephant dancing examples that I give you, none of them have followed or gone through a transformative process that is premised on imitation, best practice copying. Rather, each one of them have invented, created, experimented with a model of their own as to how do they want to achieve what they want to achieve. And what they want to achieve is a very fundamental question, and the heart of transformation, therefore, goes into asking that question, that what is that we are trying to accomplish with this organization. It is about a point of view that you take about the potential of the organization, the potential of the business. Like very often, the battle is lost because the leadership of a business and a corporation is unwilling to take bets with the capability of the organization and what the organization perhaps could achieve. If you believe that your organization can grow only at 2, 3 or 4%, it is like a self-fulfilling prophecy, likely to turn out to be growing at 2, 3 or 4%. But in the same situation, if you as a leadership team, you believe that your corporation could grow much faster, I'm not saying that you are devoid of the reality, the economic reality in the world, but within that reality, different people will grow at different rates, and therefore you need to find out how within the same frame of mind. And one of the transformative challenges is that we as both chief executives, heads of human resources, human capital development, as Bala so delightfully puts it, and you all as students, we often are the first source of putting limitations on ourselves as to what is possible and what is not possible. If you begin with putting limitations, it is likely that the transformative experience is going to be extremely, extremely limited. For example, 1.5 years ago, when we were a $35 billion company, my chairman, Mr. Birla, and my colleagues had a choice of saying by 2014-15 we will be 37 billion, 40 billion, 42 billion, 46 billion, 50 billion, but we said we will be a 65 billion revenue and $10 billion EBITDA company. Now we had a range of choices. We could have even said perhaps 100 billion. But the point is that 100 billion would require certain capital deployment, and you may not have that. Therefore, even though we had choices of setting an aspiration for ourselves to be 40 billion or 45 billion, we chose to set an aspiration for ourselves to be 65 billion. Therefore, what is the goal that you wish to pursue, how large the vision is entirely dependent on all of you. And that's the challenge, and this transformative experience doesn't have to wait for you to reach the level of chief executive. One of the underutilized opportunities and potential in an organization is most people at the bottom of the organization like you who grow up from business schools and go into the lower rungs of an organization, start their professional journey, always seem to believe that the top has to transform the organization. And I believe that true organizational transformation at the grassroots level where the mindsets matter, the grassroots level where doing things differently matter, nobody tells you or stops you from taking that extra initiative to be more customer friendly, walk that extra mile to provide that additional service to the customer, to be more connected with the customer, whether it is internal or external. Now, my belief is that transformative opportunity for an organization often is getting lost because too many people, for far too long, seem to be over-dependent on the top of the company or the corporation or the business to lead the process of transformation. And one of the challenges for us in leadership roles, and one of the challenges for faculty members in institutions like this, and one of the responsibilities of people like you sitting in this hall is to ask that question to yourself, that can I, in my own way, in my own role, in my own limitations within that and in my own boundaries, in my own function, can I bring in something transformative in my own area? Because transformative is not about changing everything every time whole scale. Transformative also can be a little spark that could fundamentally change the way the whole organization operates. And that is why you find that innovations that are started in a small measure in certain part of the organization, if that innovation is hugely successful, then certainly other parts of the organization wake up to say, hey, this is possible, why can't we do that? So many times I find that what can be transformative? You know, people think that to be a transformative leader, you need lots of knowledge, you need lots of experience. To my mind, to be a transformative leader, the first thing you need is courage. Second thing you need that your willingness to experiment with things, be prepared to be a laughing stock, be prepared to be a failure. I think if you are prepared for all of that, you can truly be a transformative leader and even fairly early in your life. If I look back on my experience with the Aditya Birla Group of this journey, we have done perhaps more than 25 acquisitions in last 17 years. We have grown from being an Indian company to a regional company to be a global company. We have grown from being a predominantly manufacturing company to be a manufacturing and service company where we have telecom. Idea Cellular is our company, service provider, not a handset manufacturer like Nokia. You know, I would like to compete with SIV as a formidable competitor. We moved to financial services, BPO, retail, which is a service business in many ways. So from manufacturing, we transformed ourselves to manufacturing and service. We transformed ourselves from a cost leader to be a value leader. We transformed ourselves from being a product manufacturer to a solution provider. For example, from being cement manufacturer, we have today become ready-mix concrete provider. We have become a building solutions provider. We have created a retail set of companies called Ultratech Building Solutions. So we have kind of been transforming ourselves in many dimensions. For example, being a predominantly company led by Indian leaders in India, we almost now globally dispersed in terms of several key centers of decision making with a diverse leadership. We have transformed ourselves from being overtly cost focused to cost to value focused. We have transformed ourselves being entirely dependent on everything being done in-house to a collaborative partnership where we manufacture a lot of things outside the organization and we do not do necessarily everything ourselves within. So in many dimensions of existence, we have been able to transform. And there, the subject is that what role does human resources play? I have been fortunate to be the part of this transformation, and I must be truthful to say, many people believe that transformation starts with always a grand vision where to get there. But actually, it is good to have a grand vision, like 6510. But you don't have to always wait to have a grand vision to transform the organization. Transformation starts by, excuse me, asking questions, what needs to change and what must change about the organization. 3 weeks ago, or 4 or 5 weeks ago, we discussed internally within my team on our HR strategy for the next 5 years in the context of 6510. And we asked 2 questions to ourselves. When we become $65 billion revenue and $10 billion EBITDA, what needs to change in this organization and what must change? And when we say what must change, then we ask 2 questions. What must change because we would have no choice, the outside world will impose that change on us, and what must change because we cannot successfully sustain and support 6510 if we do not change that. So transformation begins again, ladies and gentlemen, by asking fundamental questions of yourself, and whichever answers you get, having the courage to experiment and work towards that. If I take you back to 1996, the journey when I started with the Aditya Birla Group, we were about 140,000 people, $1.6 billion revenue. Today, $40 billion revenue, 136,000 people. We have sold perhaps 10 businesses. As I said, we have perhaps acquired 25 companies. We have extended lines of businesses. We have done everything. Therefore, perhaps one transformative experience has been that the productivity in the organization has gone up significantly, manyfold. And how has that happened? This happened by perhaps asking a fundamental question where perhaps we were overly focused on cost always, and that is rightly so. Cost competitiveness is important. But what is cost? Itself is an important question. Is it total cost? Is it unit cost? There are many ways you were to look at cost. We found perhaps in 1996 that maybe we were employing too many people, maybe low skill, and paying them too little. And the paradigm we tried to change was to say, we'll employ fewer people, pay them perhaps what market pays them and pay them a little better, and perhaps we'll employ fewer people. And therefore you find that paradigm and that question changed our entire process, where from 1.6 billion and 140,000 people, today we would have 136,000 people and 40 billion, because we changed the human resources model with which we were operating. You can either be an employment machine or you can be a productivity machine. If you can be both, that's a wonderful combination. Not always possible, perhaps. So in 1996, when we started the transformation journey, we knew that we needed to transform, but we did not know the answer in which direction and how. There were no grand plan, no big consultants, no 30-page documents, no milestones to say this is how we'll transform. We said ourselves that we will question everything that seems to not in sync with contemporary times and the future that we are seeing externally, and ask ourselves, why are we doing this way? This was simple. Sometimes it was very strong. For example, I remember when I was relatively new, I wrote a letter to a lot of senior people in the organization saying, dear Mr. So-and-so. One of the gentlemen who had worked long in the organization met me and said, you know, Dr. Misra, we address people as G. You know, Sundar G or Sam Viswanathan G. You wrote as Mr. The moment he told me that, he doubled my resolve saying that I need to address it as Mr. And where did I do it from? That courage I got from my previous organization, Hindustan Lever. Sundar may not know this, but we are talking about, and by the way, Hindustan Lever still came from there, was one of the finest organizations in this country, a multinational company. And when I say whether my company is the finest or Nokia is the finest and Hindustan or Unilever is the finest, please never get the illusion that all those who are successful do not have their own share of weaknesses, And that's the worst thing that you can do about transformation, is to read newspaper and magazine articles and believe that every large organization, everything about it is good and great. It is never so. And if anybody believes that, they cannot be transformative leaders, because one of the qualities of a transformative leader is the ability to be critical and the ability to question everything that is going on in the organization. If you believe your communication department's propaganda machine, then I think you cannot be a transformative leader. You have to be a lotus leaf that is immune to your communication propaganda machine's statements about your corporation and be internally honest, authentic to ask that question, where we are working and not working. Going back to the example I was saying, where did this transformative, some sparks I got was, I used to be the training manager in Hindustan Lever, and I found that we used to have at the end of every course a course dinner, if you remember, Sundar. And when I joined you, I found in those days, a lot of things were not prevalent. There was a guy in the training center who used to print a bunch of letters for me. Dear Mr. Datta, dear Mr. Dadi said, dear Mr. Sundar, you are invited for course dinner this time and all. I had to sign. And every week there would be 2 courses and I had to sign 25, 30, 40 letters for people inviting them for course dinner. This was happening at a time when an email, CC mail that time, was sitting on my computer. So I asked this guy, I said, what if I addressed to all of them saying, dear gentlemen, you are invited for this course dinner, etc. He said, no, that's not culturally acceptable. You have to write. I said, what value do I add signing 30, 40 letters saying you are invited for a course dinner? But then somebody said, this is culturally not acceptable. The moment somebody tells me that, I say that's an opportunity for transformation. Now, transformation is not about all these big things. When I said the belief system, breaking a habit of the organization is also transformative, because habits often are tying you down and restricting what you can achieve and cannot achieve. So one day I decided in Hindustan Lever, I'll write to everybody an email and write one postscript saying PS, henceforward all invitations will come by CC mail. I hope you appreciate the change. And I kind of with a bated breath waited to see who's going to react negatively and what's going to happen. Nobody really even noticed, nobody even cared. But somehow organizations develop these holy cows. Who develops them, nobody knows. But there are holy cows created and perpetuated by certain individuals. But it requires somebody to question that and challenge that. And I think if you look at any organization that you join and work, you will find there are those holy cows that reduce sometimes productivity, sometimes wasteful expenditure, sometimes expenditure that doesn't make any sense. And I can give you half a dozen examples of my entire professional life where at different institutions I went. They are all fine institutions, but you encounter that. So the transformative journey when we started, one of the things that the HR's role was for me was to question as many things as you can question or can be questioned. Sometimes you may have to be deliberately provocative to ask questions just to create some debate within the people, some churn in the people, some discomfort in the people about the status quo. Now that's one of the starting point of transformation. So agenda setting is very important. So as I was saying to you, 96 we did not have a grand plan that this is what we're going to do, but we had a certain agenda that we started setting, for example. What needs to change? Perhaps we found that in our interest of lifelong employment, we had carried people for too long. In name of giving talent opportunity internally, we had become an incestuous organization. Everybody reinforced the existing mindset and never brought any thought process that is different into the organization. Cost was so important that the cost-value equation people had forgotten. We were operating outside of India, predominantly as an East India company out of India. Now those are not said as a sense of criticism. I always believe that change your people, change your roles itself is transformative. Today, for the last 4 years, as CEO of a business, people ask me, HR person, are you a better CEO? Or because of being CEO, are you a better HR person? I always believe it's the second. Today, having spent 4 years as a P&L leader, I look at HR issues very differently than I used to look earlier. I wish I had done that earlier in my life. And one of my learnings for transformation is, therefore, in your life, learn to have that courage to go out of your comfort zone to do something different. And most of the time, I believe, we develop, and that is never transformative in our own lives, because we develop templates about where should my career begin, which companies I should go to, which job I should get, and if this career does not take shape this way, then I'm a failure and I should only pursue that path and not experiment with anything. Bala introduced you to me. I joined a pulp and paper company. I worked as a full-time professor for 5 years in Tata Institute of Social Sciences. I left half my job and went to do a second PhD in England, came back and came to this cutthroat professional world of Unilever, of Mr. Sundar and others, and moved from there to a traditional classical Indian organization that had aspiration to be globalizing. And each of this, and this is not a classical career path for anyone, but each of this proved to be personally transformative for me, where I learned to have the courage to go into areas of discomfort. And that's what helped me to even believe that I can take a CEO responsibility, knowing fully well I could be a disaster. And I was very careful that if I am a disaster, I shut the way for many HR people in the future to get that responsibility, because I will be the monumental example of failure of HR people not being able to transform into a P&L role. And I was very conscious about it when I took that. But at the same time, I was also driven by the fact that if I did not do it, I would also be doing a disservice to the profession, that I was someone who chickened out from it and never perhaps gave a shot at it. So the question is, if you want to be transformative leaders, that journey starts with yourself, by questioning your own mindset about why are you thinking the way you are thinking, and what necessarily proves that that is the only way, and why not go out of your comfort zone and do things. That is the last message I would like to leave with you, that transformation begins with you and not with the corporation. And if you create a mindset of yourself to question, challenge, go out of your comfort zone, I'm pretty sure in your career and in future, you can be fantastic transformative leaders, bringing transformation to not only the employer that you work for, but to Indian business, corporation, and India's place in the world community. Thank you very much for inviting me.